Om Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. I'm going to talk about the 4 or 5 things that modern and neo-Advaita can learn from our most beloved and revered Bhagavad-pada Adi Shankaracharya. It is not without reason that more than 1200 years later, we still adore, celebrate, revere and learn from Adi Shankaracharya. The Sampradaya, the teaching tradition, consists of an unbroken and long lineage of Guru Shishyas through which the self-knowledge was transmitted systematically and completely. Part of the reason why we celebrate this living tradition is because even after centuries, the subject matter, that is the Atma, which is Purnaha, and the methodology that is revealed through the Prasthanatrayi has been systematically handed down. Adi Shankaracharya did not unfold the hidden meaning that lay in the scriptures, but actually captured how the teaching tradition unfolds the hidden meaning, the pure being that we are, through this beautiful tradition. We are proud Anugais or followers of this Sampradaya, the tradition that we have inherited. While teaching in society, we come across many presentations of Advaita Vedanta that are incomplete, and there is a lot of confusion on certain matters, because of which the sincere student of Vedanta is denied the fullness of the vision that is intended by the Sampradaya. And so on the eve of Shankara Jayanti in 2020, I want to share what we can learn from Bhagavad-pada Adi Shankaracharya on these topics and related myths. Myth 1. Independent self-enquiry is adequate and sufficient to reveal the Atma. And Shankaracharya here says very clearly, Shastra eva pramanam. Shastra alone is a valid means of knowledge that is adequate and sufficient to reveal the Atma. In the Brahma Sutras, Bhagavan Vedavyasa again very clearly lists Shastra Yonitvat, that Vedanta, the source of Vedanta, the source of this knowledge is indeed Brahman, that this is revealed knowledge. And so we have to understand what a pramana is. For sight, the organ of vision and the mind need to operate. For things for which immediate perception is not possible, there is inference. But again, anumanam or inference requires a postulation, and it's still dependent upon perception. So the question is, the self that is ashabdam, asparsham, arupam, agandham is obviously not an object of perception. So it requires another means of knowledge called the Shabda. So Vedanta Paribhasha very clearly defines Pramana as the distinctive cause of valid knowledge. By instrument, it is meant that special cause which produces a specific effect. In the bhashya, Shankara says, Shastrad eva pramanaha Jagataha janmadi karanam brahmadi gamyate iti abhiprayaha, very clear understanding. Then further, in his commentary on the Brahma Sutra, he says, Shrute hetu shabda moolatvat. So the Shruti is indeed that Shabda which is concerning all the truths that are beyond normal experience. The thing to note is that the result we get from the knowledge is immediate. So just as in understanding the sentence, this is a rope, not a snake, it can eliminate the fear of the person once and for all. The knowledge gained by the words of the Shruti are adequate and sufficient when it is said you are Ishvara, it can immediately remove the ignorance, the inadequacy, the grief and the fear that is associated with taking oneself as the limited body-mind. Myth 2. There is no need for a guru. If at all, we have to look for the guru within. Here, Adi Shankaracharya comes to the rescue of modern and neo-Vedanta. And he says, learning Vedanta is possible only through Shastracharya Upadesha. The very Veda that declares your nature as limitlessness also indicates the method. The Mundaka Upanishad directs the seeker to not study a text. Okay, this is very important. Don't study a text. Go to a teacher who is well versed in the Shastra, a Shrotriya, Brahmanistha in order to gain knowledge. Now, if I try to study the text on my own, there will be contradictions. They are apparent, of course. So, in one place it is said, Manasa eva anudrashtavyam. The self can be seen only with the mind. Another place, Yato vacho nivartante apra-apya manasa saha. So, the words return along with the mind because Brahman cannot be grasped. Which of these statements is true? And here, Shankaracharya reminds us, Anekaha Vedantaha Samshaya Bahavaha. Many doubts are there because of Aneka Vedantaha statements. Shastrajñopi swatantrena Brahman anveshanam na kuryat iti etah gurum eva iti avadharanam phalam. In the bhashya for Mundaka Upanishad, he says that even though you are knowledgeable about the Shastra, you may have written books on Sanskrit, but do not seek Brahman independently, because here the word Gurum Eva, that Eva Shabda alone from the Guru itself you need to learn. Now another thing that is very interesting is that whenever Shankara refers to the scriptures as a source of knowledge, he invariably in the same breath mentions the word Acharya, teacher. And this particular beautiful phrase, Shastracharya Upadesha, is consistently used across the bhashya. So, Sugavanam Krishnan, who did his wonderful thesis work, notes that the word Shastracharya Upadesha occurs more than 35 times across the Bhagavad Gita, Kena, Katha, Mundaka, Taittiriya, Chandogya, totally I'm saying. Okay, so like for instance in the Bhagavad Gita it occurs 10 times, Kena Upanishad 2 times, Mundaka 4 times, Katha 5 times, Taittiriya 1 time, Chandogya Upanishad 7 instances, and in the Brihadaranyaka 6 instances of the word Shastracharya Upadesha, which means that the self is understood when one is equipped with the teachings of the Shastra and the Acharya. In other words, the Acharya is because of what the person has learnt of the Shastra. We cannot really divide the two because the sampradaya is such. The teacher just happens to be a part of the package, but whatever the Acharya says, as long as a person is a traditional Acharya, will really speak the Shastra. There is nothing new to add. And there is no need to find the Guru within. Okay? Myth 3. There is no need or there is no qualification required, nor is there any relating to God required in modern or neo-Advaita. And here Shankaracharya very nicely and elaborately refers to both the sadhana and relating to Ishvara as necessary for Vedanta. So all the Prakarana Granthas and the Bhagavad Gita and Tattva Bodha are elaborating so much on sadhana chatushtaya. So Viveka, Vairagya, Shatka Sampatti, Mokshatvam, all of this, so much to say. Because the truth is that unless there is relative ananda in one's life, how can there be absolute ananda understanding? If there isn't relative freedom in my life, how can I understand the absolute freedom that is moksha Interestingly, Shankaracharya uses the words Ishvara, Atma, Brahman, Parameshwara interchangeably across the bhashya. Why? Because he does not want us to have a conceptual or a limited understanding. He does not want us to categorize Atma. Okay, whenever he makes a distinction between Ishvara and Brahman, always he keeps in view the empirical or functional reality, Vyavaharika Satyam, and the absolute reality, Paramarthika Satyam. And the important thing to note is both are not opposed to each other. So the journey of a Vedanta student is so well taken care of through the bhashya, because the journey then is from Pratibhasika Satyam, my subjective understanding, to Vyavaharika Satyam, my understanding of functional and empirical realities, to Paramarthika Satyam, to the absolute reality that is in and through the Pratibhasika and the Vyavaharika. So all the way one's understanding of Satyam is what is highlighted and elaborated, and Shankaracharya starts where the student is, and that's the beauty. Then the next myth is Vedanta is theory, the experience and practice is in Samadhi. Okay? And of course, Shankaracharya very clearly says that there is no theory or practice in Vedanta, and Samadhi is not self-knowledge. Now another thing to note is that the word Samadhi does not occur in the 10 Upanishads which Shankara has commented on. So if indeed Samadhi was the goal of Vedanta, then it has to appear at least a few times in the source text, in the Moolam. The closest word is Samahita, and it occurs in Chandogya Upanishad and Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, but the meaning over there is more of a calm and a composed mind, and it is not referring to the Samadhi experience. So then the question is, how is it that Shankaracharya is looking at Samadhi? The role of Samadhi is preliminary but not identical with the rise of liberating knowledge. So Adi Shankaracharya does speak of a type of concentration, a certain focus on the self, which involves a withdrawal of the mind from the senses and sense objects, but he clearly rejects the Sankhya view that liberation has to be accomplished through the dissociation of Purusha from Prakriti, and the person has to achieve Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Okay, so Brahma Sutra Bhashya, second Adhyaya, he very systematically refutes the Sankhya view. The emphasis on Samadhi in classical yoga is definitely not the same as in Vedanta. In fact, Shankaracharya uses the word Samadhi just a handful of times and not in a favorable context in the Bhashya. So the important thing to note is that contemplation on the self is definitely a part of Shankara's teachings, but the contemplation is directed towards the knowledge that has taken place in Shravanam, which is seeing the self as Nirvikalpa, no Vikalpa, no division, and free from all conditionings. Purusha is already Mukta, already attained, already accomplished, already Siddha, and a limited action of Nirvikalpa Samadhi is not really going to help the person. Samadhi is definitely not the means for liberation. In fact, removal of ignorance is really the way to moksha. Okay. He mentions this in Yoga Pratyukti Adhikaranam in the Bhashya. So it's true that yoga practices are seen in the Upanishads themselves, but what is it about yoga that needs to be rejected? And so he says here, Shrutihi Vaidika Atma Ekatva Vijnanat Anya Nishreyasa Sadhanam Varayati. So the Shruti rejects that there is any other means for liberation apart from the knowledge of the oneness of the self which is revealed in the Veda. Although traditional texts like Panchadashi and more recently Vedanta Sara account for Ashtanga Yoga practices, they are viewed as a preparation for Vedanta. Then another myth, which is the limitless self that Vedanta reveals can be arrived at through logic. No book is required. And here Shankaracharya very beautifully outlines the role of three pillars of Vedanta: Shruti, Yukti and Anubhava. Shruti is a scripture, Yukti is reason, and Anubhava is a recognition. And so logic, for it to be sensible, it has to be Shruti Anukula Tarka, or logic or reason that is supportive of the Shruti. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 3.6.1 consists of a very nice discussion between Gargi and Yajnavalkya. So beginning with the earth and ending with the world of Hiranyagarbha, Gargi questions Yajnavalkya about the successive pervasiveness of each factor. And Shankaracharya continues to say that whatever is an effect, karyam, is pervaded by the karana, cause, that is unlimited and subtle. Then, interesting, Gargi asks, by what is the world of Hiranyagarbha pervaded? So note that they are proceeding from a logic standpoint. Yajnavalkya refuses to proceed with the discussion, and he says, you are questioning about a deity that should not be reasoned about. Do not push your inquiry too far. So here Shankaracharya does not look at Yajnavalkya's refusal to continue the discussion out of any other reason, but just the point that it cannot be arrived through logic. So he points out at that time that Brahman cannot be known through inference, but must be approached by the proper pramana. And so we refer to the role of logic and reason as Shruti Anukula Tarkaha. In his emphasis on reasoning, he says that any reasoning which is not rooted in the Vedas and springs from mere conjecture, it lacks conclusiveness. So although yogic practices can lead to extraordinary powers and experiences, in the Brahma Sutra bhashya, Shankaracharya establishes that the words of the Shruti can lead to the knowledge in a mind that has been mastered. And very beautifully in Kenopanishad, he says that evam acharyoktaha shishyaha ekante upavishtaha samahitaha san yathoktam acharyena agamam arthataha vicharya tarkatascha nirdharya swanubhavam kritva acharya sakasham upagamya uvacha manyeham atha idanim viditam brahma iti. Okay, lots of Sanskrit here. So really meaning that the disciple, having been told by the teacher, sat in solitude, upavishtaha, samahitaha, yathoktam acharyena, as mentioned by the teacher, deliberated on the agama words. And then tarkatascha nirdharya, ascertained it by a process of reasoning. Swanubhavam kritva, made it a matter of self-recognition. Anupaschad bhava, bhava being pure being, what follows that pure being is a recognition of that. Anubhava, although translated as experience, we will understand it to mean self-recognition, seeing the meaning of what the teacher says, then approaches the teacher and says, now I think Brahman is known. Okay, this is the famous samvada of the teacher and the student in Kenopanishad. So there is that tendency in modern Vedanta to confuse it with yoga, which is experiential, and Anubhava is looked at as intuition or some sort of internal perception that is on par with external perception. But in the commentary on Brahma Sutra, Shankaracharya says, Anubhavayascha, that Anubhava can be used as a supplementary means of inquiry. But their Anubhava includes any experience which can be analyzed, starting with our own experience of 3 states of experience: waking, deep sleep and dream, and the unchanging awareness that is in and through all the states, which of course is my recognition of what the Shruti reveals about me. To really appreciate the glory of Shankaracharya, I thought it was nice to hear his words through the bhashya, and driving home the points that Shastra eva pramana, that Shastra alone is a valid means of knowledge, pramana, and is adequate and sufficient to reveal the Atma. Second, that learning Vedanta is possible only through the Acharya, through the word, the compound, Shastra Acharya Upadesha. Then, of course, Shravanam being the main sadhana, there is no theory and practice in Vedanta. Then the role of logic, reason and anubhava is very beautifully explained by him, and we are able to see the meaning of what he was conveying. For me and for many of us, Puja Swami Dayananda Saraswati Ji was our Shankaracharya, and we are able to appreciate the clarity, the beauty of Shankaracharya because we have learnt the words of the bhashya which came alive to us through the grace, the blessings and the profound teachings of Puja Swamiji. So our koti koti namaskara to the entire parampara, mainly to Adi Shankaracharya on the eve of his Jayanti. Om Tat Sat.